Radio check. Loud and clear.
KSL Sports and KSL Podcast present Mode Push, an American view of F1, starting now.
One stop. He's looking cut with his honestly.
I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted.
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome on in. It's another edition of Mode Push, F1 podcast, produced right here in America, Salt Lake City, Utah, USA. Yes, here we are, Alex Kirry. My co-host, as always, Dan Jimenez. We might be joined by Carlos Fortun, who joined us last week, our F1 insider here inside the building also. So we're just gaining F1 insiders all over the place here, Dan. So that's the part that I love, is that we just have so many people who are interested in F1 now. We have like guests who join us, and it's like a whole new world for us. So it's good. How was your race weekend? Because, you know, there was part of me that was like, oh, shoot, Max won again. And then I found myself going, oh, no, hold on a minute. We did that last year and the last 7 years with Lewis. Just you finally asked for somebody else to win, and boy, did he, in crazy fashion again. His, 14th win of the season, 15th win of the season? So it was a
15,
wild one.
yeah.
Thoughts on the final race of the season here?
I thought that it was the textbook ending to the season. Just we kind of got a mini summary of all the trends that we had in the season in one race. Max dominated. Alonso had issues. Like, you had just kind of stuff that was playing out. Mick and Latifi hit each other. It was just it seemed that everything was just playing out as it had for the previous 20 some odd races. And
Sure,
so
yeah.
I was just really impressed by Charles's drive. I guess the one trend that we did buck this weekend was Ferrari's strategy. They actually made a good strategic call. For a while there, I was questioning it, and everybody was pretty worried as Checo was starting to catch him after making that second pit stop, and all the other drivers were complaining about being held out on one-stoppers.
Right.
But it ended up being the right choice by a margin of 1.3 seconds. But I think a lot of credit needs to go to Charles for maintaining his tires that long and being able to hold off Checo at the end. So happy for Charles to finish second. I think that's what he deserves. Max was like, might as well have been taking a nap out front. And I love that Max was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help Checo
Sure.
in the last race. And like the one thing he does is to like tell the guys like, hey, tell Checo the tires are fine, just to go for it. Like, well, easy for you to say, dude, you're out front.
He's like battling everybody else in there. Hey, jump in. The water's fine up here. It's like, I can't just be at the front of the pack here. So Carlos Fortun just walked in the studio. So we're going to get a breakdown here.
All right.
Carlos, welcome, first of all.
Yeah, thank you.
Final race of the season. Dan gave me his estimation on how that thing shook out. What did you think about the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and how the F1 season ended from 2022?
I think it ended great. It was a good race, exciting race. I mean, we got that battle for second place, and I was just listening in. Yeah, Ferrari got it right. At the last race, Ferrari got it right. And they actually outsmarted Red Bull, which often, doesn't happen
either, yeah.
Doesn't happen often. So I think that was great. Sebastian Vettel battling. I mean, I think that was wonderful, even to the end. I think that was great. And Aston Martin needed that one extra point that I was hoping he was going to pass Ricciardo at the end for that one extra point just in that battle, but he didn't with Alfa Romeo. And yeah, overall, I thought it was great. Shane Hamilton also had that first break for Mercedes throughout the whole season, and
Right.
2 laps before the end of the race, it was the first retirement.
Well, yeah, DNF for them, which reliability was never the issue for Marks this year, obviously, and so that was nice to kind of go, hey, we had a reliable car all season long, but it just had gotten to that point where you're like, oh, no, it's not just a reliable car now. It is competitive, and it's one of these quick cars, and so Ferrari can hang their hat and go, hey, you know what? That's the type of stuff we're going to show you guys in 2023. We got that one race right back in 2022 in Abu Dhabi, and here we are. We're finally able to pull this one off. So disappointments from the weekend, though, because there's always some of those, Dan. Like, what are some of the things that you're like, shoot, I wish this would have gone a little bit more this way, or was there a better way? I know that Checo not getting, not being able to pass Charles and get that second place. It's still a massively, successful season for Red Bull and even for Checo. He ends third in the title race, but the guy got a couple of wins. I think it was Monaco and Singapore. Those were his 2 wins this year, if I'm not mistaken. So, negatives from the race for you, Dan.
I think if you're McLaren, you just walk away from that race disappointed, trying to pass Alpine and getting a little bit of a favor with Alonso's DNF, and you just still couldn't. I mean, Lando drove a good race. I think he finished 7th, like best of the rest, but but Ricciardo wasn't anywhere close to up there. And I just think that McLaren has a lot of soul searching to do over this offseason for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is McLaren in all this? Because the driver lineup looks promising for next year, but I mean none of it'll matter if they haven't made that that push on the development side of things, because everybody's waiting for that car to get quicker. I mean, you can't get much more promising in terms of Lando Norris, and so you've got a guy who has a lot of talent. So Carlos, what is the next thing then? Because Zach Brown's got a lot cut out for him there at McLaren, because they have to figure out a ton before next year's car gets rolled out. Yeah,
I think there needs to be a shift at McLaren, because they've done a great job. I mean, when Zach Brown came in, that car was not great, and all the what they've done in the past few years has been great, but they're still stuck in this 4th, maybe 5th, and this year wasn't great. There was a lot of promises in all the changes. So I think there has to be there's something in the team that is just, they cannot get past to be, that extra half a second to a second to just start being one of the top teams. So I don't know where that change needs to be made, but there's definitely, I think there's just something there that little bit extra that they need that they're just not getting.
There's the awkward parts of the weekend. That's also my favorite part of these weekends, Dan, too, right? The awkward moments. Nico Hülkenberg wearing the Haas gear around the garage all weekend, and then Mick Schumacher being told, don't do donuts. Like, basically, man, you don't deserve them. Yeah. Right? Wasn't that kind of like the vibe that you got? At the very least, you got out of it that his garage and he didn't necessarily get along as one should with a driver.
Yeah, so cringy. He'd already started them, and they're like, please stop doing that. And it's, I think it's probably a combination of Haas doesn't have too many engines that they can, or engine parts or driveline parts that they can just throw away. But I read it more like a dude, you didn't earn your donuts this year, so please just bring the car back inside. So yes, that was very awkward, and it's kind of funny too. Yeah.
I would have just kept doing it, like, you know what I mean? It's why not? Like, it's
You're
maybe my last time. Yeah,
you could be like, hey, Bill the Schumacher estate, I'll buy you $140,000 gearbox or whatever it is that you need. But, Nico Hülkenberg walking around the garage and kind of getting that. The other awkward moment that I loved, I did see this quote from Otmar Snaffauer, who said, I'm really happy with our driving pairing this coming year with Esteban and Pierre. It would have been. It's better than it would have been if we would have won that Piastri case. So he just straight up threw out there like, you guys can have Piastri because we got it all figured out over here with these two Frenchmen who barely like each other. So there's always
shade.
Stuff, there's always stuff to look forward to. And
a year from now, the drama in that team a year from now is going to be great.
Like, they can't not have drama there. No. They had one of the best drivers in the history of the sport at their team this year, and they ran him off.
Yeah.
Or maybe his personality, of course. He's a little bit strong personality, too. So 100%. I don't know which one it is, except for Alpine can't seem to get out of their own way.
And it was funny. I mean, this last race, again, yet another engine failure for Alonso. And he didn't say anything. He just parked it, which if I would have been Alonso, I would have also been like, you know what? Let's just drive until it breaks. Why not? Sure. When it's last race, I don't need another engine. Because
it probably will break anyway.
Yeah.
Based on the reliability that they had this year. So,
yeah.
I look at some of the poor performances from the weekend, guys who absolutely blew it. There's the DNF stuff, and then there are the ones who just didn't perform this weekend. Dan, you go first.
Yeah. I think, Lewis, that was out of his control, but I was hoping that George was going to be faster with all the gains that they seemingly made in the prior weeks. And so I think it was a bit surprising that Mercedes didn't have the pace, not just compared to Red Bull, but compared to Ferrari. Like Ferrari was definitely faster than them. So I think there's a little bit of a head scratcher that maybe the Interlagos was a little bit of a lucky break for them. And maybe isn't the trend going into the end of the season. So I think they're ready to just take that W13 car and throw it away. Although I heard that the plan is to put it in the foyer, like the front of the HQ, so that everybody can remember, why it's important to work hard in the offseason.
Hold on a minute. So they're going to pull like the equivalent is like putting up, your conference championship trophy in the hallway of the Buffalo Bills because you're like, hey, we didn't win another Super Bowl. Like that's, I guess that could be like some weird. That seems like a very Mercedes thing to do though. Yeah. Like Toto, they're mostly like about motivating and getting the best out of guys, but that team expects greatness, and if you're going to employ 1,500 people or whatever it is to win races, you better freaking do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now as we bid adieu to Sebastian Vettel out of F1, the four-time world champ, how is he going to be viewed in the list of all-timers, Dan, as we kind of send Seb and his long hair off into hippiedom or whatever it is he's going to do next?
Yeah, I mean, he's an all-timer, right? He's top 10, top 5. I mean, so 4 championships and just one of the most beloved drivers on the grid, just kind of from the kind of person that he is. And he didn't go out on top, but he also didn't like drag his career on, I think, too long. So I think nothing but positive vibes. I actually was able to watch the race yesterday with my brother. And my brother, when he was in NASCAR, was doing a tire test at Homestead Miami Speedway, and Sebastian Vettel came. I guess he was in South Beach for his birthday or something, and heard that there was a NASCAR test going on. So he got his way into the garage area, and my brother and Sebastian Vettel got to sit down and chat for about 10 minutes on the pit wall. And my brother's just asking him, would you ever do this? Would you ever do this oval racing thing after you retire? And Sebastian said, I'll maybe do some sports car racing, but I'm never driven side by side for that long with other cars, so I don't think this is for me. But my brother's overall impression of Sebastian was just like down to earth, super nice guy, no ego, and I think that's what he'll be remembered as, just a really great person and an incredible driver.
Yeah, the guy who, I don't know. How long does Fernando have still? As a guy who follows Fernando Alonso, and you look at him signing up for another team. This is like the third team in 5 years, and he took one of those years off, and so it's like this is a lot of teams for Fernando. It's like you don't have anything else to prove. Everybody knows how good of a racer you are. So what is it that keeps driving Fernando to stay in the sport when he watches one of his contemporaries walk away from it?
I honestly think he just loves racing, and he's said it before, like, I'm going to do this until I get tired of it, but he loves the sport. So he's done other types of racing, and he's done pretty good there. So maybe when he gets bored, that's when he'll stop. But he's still competitive, and he's shown it. He still does great races, knows how to read the race. So honestly, as long as there's a team out there that'll have him, I think he will just keep going until he's 60 if he could.
We've got a lot to chat about in the coming weeks here. Dan, This is going to be fun because I think we're going to give out kind of report cards for the entire season for each one of these teams. But I'm also looking forward to see what these teams are going to do into the future here, because next year you're going to have a Nicholas Latifi. You're going to have a Mick Schumacher, somebody who are like, they're out of the sport suddenly. You're going to have somebody who surprises you maybe this year. To kind of preview a little bit of that, I'll start with you, Carlos, and then Dan, I'll have you think about it a little bit. What's the biggest surprise for you? Who was the biggest surprise for you as a team? Who was the biggest surprise for you as a driver this year?
I think as a team, Aston Martin. I don't think I had many hopes for them. I didn't start that great, but they've developed pretty good this year. So I think Aston Martin has been great, and I think I have personally good expectations, probably because I'm also hoping that as Alonso goes in next year, they continue that trend up. And then as a driver this year, I don't know. I got to think. I think Leclerc has been killing it this year. Not that many mistakes. I mean, he got most poles this year,
You got a lot of poles.
A lot of poles, and honestly, if things would have gone right with many strategies, he would have been a lot closer to that championship. But I think Red Bull even had probably the fastest car by the end. Yeah.
Dan, your thoughts on the team who impressed the most and the driver who impressed the most, or maybe shocked you? I think
Alfa Romeo, just barely kind of on a tiebreaker basis, beating out Aston Martin was surprising to me. And then Alpine finishing fourth ahead of McLaren despite so many reliability issues. I mean, I don't believe, I think a couple episodes ago we went through all of Alonso's DNFs that he's had this year. The inconsistency there is crazy considering they still finished 24 points ahead of McLaren, which, in my recollection, didn't have that many DNFs. So when they were not blowing up, they were really fast. So I think that if they can get the reliability stuff under control, they could come back and repeat as the best of the rest next year, or maybe even challenge in the top three. And then on the driver's side of things, I think George Russell beating Lewis Hamilton by 25 points in the same equipment, I think is underrated this year. Obviously, he's the only Mercedes driver who got a win. Says Lewis's first season in 15, I can't remember how many seasons that he hasn't had a win. George was able to pull it off. So I was impressed by George, and I think he's going to carry that momentum forward.
Quietly, this isn't my total pick, but Valtteri Bottas had a really good year. I think that toward the end they kind of fell off a little bit, but Alfa Romeo and frankly Haas outperformed, I think, what we thought they were going to be doing. Part of it is that Ferrari power unit that ended up being a lot better of a situation there, in K-Mag, performing there. I think that my biggest shock, though, probably goes in the negative category of McLaren. Mm-hmm. And to see Lando Norris finish this year on such a downward trajectory, not really him personally, but knowing that his development was absolutely hampered by the fact that the car that they gave him was massively inconsistent, was not great weekend to weekend, and there were very few times where you went, oh, there's the Lando we like. He didn't look happy most of the year, and I think I was just kind of hoping that he and Danny Rick would kind of create something that was really, really fun, and it just did not happen at all. But Lando, I keep waiting for him to be my new favorite guy, and it just is not happening. And so from that negative perspective, because I always love to bring I always like to go full negative and get the awkward points going on the show. I think that McLaren was massively disappointing, and I was super sad that Lando and it's I really don't think it was much of his fault. I think it was just mostly that he was stuck in the slow lane with that car that he had. Yeah. Very few times that he was able to kind of prove himself, and it was even more ridiculously kind of highlighted by the fact that Danny Rick got a weird win, and Lando can't even buy one. I
got to think, because Lando Norris is locked into his contract until 2028. So if this car, if you can see year after year that the progression is just not there, are you going to regret signing? Because at first, right, you signed with McLaren until 2028. Yeah. That is great.
He's the golden boy. He's Zach's golden boy, man.
But he still wants to win that championship, right? So if in next year the car's not there, the year after the car's not there, is he going to start regretting maybe that decision to sign such a long deal term?
Dan, are you have you jumped fully off of the Ferrari bandwagon that was there for 2 seconds, and then you're back onto the Merc side of things because you drive a Mercedes?
Yeah, I think I am. I'm sitting in the Mercedes with one toe in the water still on Ferrari, just because I just want Charles to get, back into his winning fashion. It was so fun when he got that streak going a couple years ago. So, but yeah, I want to see AMG start fighting against Red Bull and have a tighter championship next year.
All right, so we're looking forward to next season, but we're also going to keep throwing some episodes out periodically here. I think we'll kind of keep that weekly thing going on here for the time being. So, Dan, if you're down still, we got to keep these things going. And Carlos, whenever you want to be able to join us, and we'll be able to do that as well. So we'll fire this thing up. For Dan Jimenez and Carlos Fortun, Alex Kirry, it is Mode Push, brought to you by KSL Sports, KSL Podcasts. We'll be back again in another episode. We'll jump in and kind of give our full thoughts on and full grades for teams. And we'll have some awards for most awkward moment of the season, worst and best radio calls, and all of it. We'll do all of it coming up here. So for Dan and Carlos, I'm Alex. We'll talk to you next time, everybody.